a letter sent by the counsel for the former special counsel, Jack Smith, asking Congress if he can testify in an open hearing. Joining our panel here in the arena, CNN senior law enforcement analyst Andrew McCabe. He previously served as deputy FBI director. Andy McCabe, I'd like to start with you on this because the focus here, according to this letter, is this question of they're known as toll records. For Americans, it's if you open up your cell phone bill and you'll see a list of all the people you've called. Was it incoming? Was it outgoing? What was the number? And this is a tool that's frequently used in criminal investigations. This letter from Jack Smith outlines a number of other times that this was purportedly used against members of Congress, including some Democratic members of Congress. But I think big picture, I'm curious what it says to you that Jack Smith is reaching out and proactively saying, the things you're saying about me in public are not true, and I want to come and defend myself in public.
I think it's really important. I think it's important that he's speaking up. And I think it's important that he's speaking up in a way to kind of demystify what has been grossly misrepresented to the American people by the senators in that testimony we saw a few weeks ago. As you mentioned, Casey, toll records are a very rudimentary kind of first step investigative technique in many, almost all investigations. And it's typically done early in investigation when you have an allegation and you're trying to vet an allegation to even see if there's something worth investigating. So if someone comes to you, let's say a situation like this, if someone makes an allegation that they have information that the president contacted a particular senator in the process of trying to stall the Congress's work on certifying the election. One way to vet that information would be to get toll records to see if there was actually telephonic contact between those people. And after you've proved that, if there's no contact, then you know not to go down that investigative avenue. If there is contact, then there are, of course, more techniques that you can use to get to the bottom of it. I should also say that it takes a grand jury subpoena to acquire those records. So this is not something that a prosecutor and FBI agent just dream up off the top of their heads and call up the phone company and say, hey, send us everything you have. There's a process. These records are accessed lawfully under the purview of the grand jury. So it's, as I said, I think it was grossly misrepresented in that hearing.
Andy, is the bar higher for the records of a member of Congress versus the average citizen?
Sure they are. And by things as simple as kind of internal policy. At the FBI, there are some sorts of investigations that we qualify as sensitive investigative matters. We call them SIMs because you have to have an acronym for everything. But by definition, if you're investigating someone who is a politically elected person, it qualifies as a SIM, and that subjects that investigation and the steps that you propose to take to much greater levels of scrutiny from both people at the FBI and higher levels within headquarters, but also across the street at the Justice Department. You have to notify the Justice Department when you open a sensitive investigation, and that gives them an opportunity to really question your motives and your reasons for wanting to do something, and whether or not you're intruding on things like a senator's speech and debate clause, speech and debate privilege, things like that. So that's how we discuss internally and make decisions about those sensitive cases. I would expect that those discussions took place within the special counsel's team, and they ultimately decided to take the steps they did, which were entirely lawful.
Jamie Gangel, you, of course, reported extensively on the January 6th investigation as it was ongoing. Did you help us understand what role this might have played? I think there is a relevant paragraph here that we haven't read yet here. Jack Smith's legal team is defending their decision to go ahead and do this. And they say that, quote, in fact, by the time Mr. Smith's team conducted the toll record analysis, so by the time they looked at these records, it had been reported that President Trump and Rudy Giuliani tried calling senators for such a purpose, the purpose being to urge them to delay the certification of the 2020 election results. One senator had released a voicemail from Mr. Giuliani to this effect.
So, in fact, it was true. Look, this was a very limited period of time that they looked at. I think the dates were about January 4th to 7th, the days leading up to January 6th and afterwards, and it was for our reporting a very specific reason. Were calls being made to senators to tell them to delay the process? And so, just as it says in the letter, we were reporting it, and guess what? It turned out to be true. Calls were made.
Mark Short, your favorite topic, I know. But again, you played a significant role with the vice president throughout the January 6th, the day. What do you make of the decision to look at these records? You've also served a number of public officials.
It might not come as a surprise that many witnesses had their phone records subpoenaed.
Really?
Yes. But
Tell us more.
Casey, what's surprising to me is that I feel like Republicans in Congress can be talking about passing historic tax relief. They can be talking about securing the border. They can be talking about a ceasefire in Israel and a hostage deal. Why they want to relitigate this, I do not understand. I think that President Trump has been very successful in revising the historical events of January 6th. Why they want to keep pushing on this and thinking it's a political winner when you see stories like last week when one of the people pardoned was arrested for trying to assassinate Hakeem Jeffries. I don't think this is a political winner for Republicans to keep wanting to turn over more and more of the January 6th investigation. I feel like they should be talking about things that they've been successful with already in the first 9 months under Republican rule. And why they're doing this is confusing to me.
I have an answer to that.
last
The
word.
reason why they're doing it is because they released this information the day before the morning of Pam Bondi's hearing, and they wanted to distract a little bit and have something that Pam Bondi and Republicans could talk about
this has been
instead
going
of
on
all.
for longer
But the
than that.
toll
It's been
records,
going on
they've
for
been looking
longer.
for stuff on Jack Smith for quite a while, and I think Jack Smith has been pretty silent throughout his time at the
I think
Justice
this is
Department.
because the president's pushing them to do it.
Well,
That's what's
and
happening.
one thing that's clear.
That's the answer.
Right.
And
That's
yes,
exactly.
the
That's
president.
why.
The
That's
president.
why.
I'm
But
sure
why
the
he's
president
doing it,
is.
I don't get it.
Well, it's not a political winner necessarily with voters. I agree with you on that. But it is a political winner if you are in this Republican conference and you want to curry favor with President Trump, which is your currency right now. Then it's a political winner
Maybe
to
not,
dunk on Jack
maybe not as
Smith.
much in the general election as a primary.
We'll see if they'll let him testify publicly.